Hi guys, it's Paraly5er here, and welcome to Mythbusting Part 13. This is the series where I take your grounded myths and test them in the game. In today's episode, we bust all sorts of myths, including one of our biggest myths yet: can you beat the game without using the spacer? Our very first myth in today's episode comes in from Henry the Mild, and they ask, myth, can you build up to the battery terminals and lure bugs to kill them? Now, for some reason, I couldn't get the bugs to follow me up the ramp, so I had to test this with a bee instead. Yes, it was pretty difficult to do. As you can see, the bee did eventually fly into the electric part of the battery, but not only did it not insta-kill it, it didn't do any damage at all. So this myth is busted. The bugs cannot die by touching the electric parts of the battery packs, unlike us stupid humans. Today's second myth comes in from Roman, and they ask, myth, throwing a sour battle axe doesn't count as a chopping tool. Let's test it out. As we all know, chopping with the sour battle axe regularly cuts down grass blades. Does it work when thrown? I threw the battle axe a few times, but the grass stood firm. This myth is busted. Throwing the battle axe doesn't count as an axe. The next myth in today's episode comes in from Batman, and they say, myth, blocking with a shield will fill the mosquito blood sac without taking damage. Let's check it out. I hopped into my world and blocked the mosquito's attacks. After a couple of attacks, his abdomen turned red, meaning this myth is confirmed. Even if you block all of the mosquito's attacks, you can still get a blood sac from them. Our next myth today comes in from Alan, and they ask, myth, Ladybug and Ladybird can both bust sturdy and supreme material. Let's give it a go. I headed to the Ladybird area and got it to attack a marble rock. As you can see, it was able to break the rock. After testing and with some help from the wiki, this myth is true for the Ladybirds, but not for the Ladybugs. The busting attack is the down slam attack that only the Ladybirds do. Because they are tier 3, they should be able to break tier 3 rocks. So this myth is confirmed. Ladybirds can break things that require tier 3 of busting. Today's next myth comes in from Rack, and they ask, myth, rock cracker works on clay. A very simple myth. Let's see what happens. I first broke some clay without rock cracker, and it took me 4 hits. Then I equipped the rock cracker mutation, and it only took 2 hits to break. So, of course, this myth is indeed true. If you're harvesting clay, make sure you have rock cracker enabled. We have a very strange myth next, and it comes in from Oklaphobia, and they ask, myth, the receiver that spins on the field station only spins when you are looking at it. Now this is hard to test because if I'm not looking at it, how do I know if it's spinning? I tried looking at it in third person, but that didn't work either. So I decided to stand on top of it and look up. This way, I wasn't looking at it, but if it stopped spinning, I would know because so would I. As you can see, it does stop spinning if you aren't looking at it. So this myth is true. If you look away from the dish on the field station, it stops spinning. Talk about a random myth. Our next myth today comes in from Chillax, and they ask, myth, the Java-matic counts for guard dog. Let's find out. I did the Java-matic defense without guard dog unlocked. Once completed, it didn't tell me that I unlocked stage 1 of guard dog, but when I checked my mutations tab, it had unlocked. So this myth is confirmed. Beating the Java-matic does count towards the guard dog mutation. The next myth in today's episode was sent in by Go Bro Plays, and they ask, myth, can the mantis eat broodmother parts? Now, obviously, the mantis kebab is made from broodmother parts and fire ant heads, so let's see if it will eat either of them. I started the mantis fight and dropped some broodmother parts on the floor. Sadly, the mantis wasn't interested. Next, I tried dropping some fire ant heads, but the mantis didn't want those either. So this myth is busted. The mantis doesn't eat the fire ant heads or the broodmother parts, despite them being used in the mantis kebab. Today's next myth was sent in by Wyatt DeWise, and they ask, myth, if you don't activate the spacer, can you still beat the game? It's time to find out. I headed back to spawn with the embiggening cocktail, and as you can see, the spacer hasn't been activated yet. I headed down below and tried replacing the embiggening cell. This completely glitched out the game and gave me a weird bug where I could open and close the embiggening cell. With the embiggening cell replaced, I tried to activate the spacer, but it wouldn't let me. So I cleared the path to the laser and killed the mites before trying again. Sadly, the game just unlocked Burgle like normal, and then let me finish the game afterwards. So this myth is busted. You can't stop the spacer from blowing up the Oak Lab and beat the game. Our next myth today comes in from a Vanguard, and they ask, myth, if you have the zipper, can you send grass or weed stems up the zip lines? Let's find out. I headed to my zipline and dropped some planks to go up it. Sadly, they just go down like normal. This myth is busted. Unfortunately, you can only send planks and stems down the zip lines. The next myth in today's episode comes in from Element, and they ask, myth, you can lure the scarabs in the undershed pipe out of the pipe without them burrowing. I got to the pipe and tried everything to push the scarab out of it, but he just wouldn't leave. As you can see, you can't build in the undershed, so I'm gonna say this myth is busted because I can't figure out a way to get the scarabs out of the pipe. Today's next myth comes in from Rosso, and they ask, myth, running and jumping across the sand in the sandbox causes you to sizzle less than just running. This is an interesting one to test if it's the sand that causes the sizzle or just the sunlight. I built a path along the sandbox and ran from one side to the other. When just normally running, my sizzle bar completely filled up and I lost a little bit of health. When running and jumping, my sizzle bar filled up and I lost the exact same amount of health. So this myth is busted. The sizzling is caused by the sunlight, not by touching the ground. Our next myth today comes in from Lazy Camper, and they ask, myth, you can sleep through the mixers to complete them. This would be insane if it's true. I activated the mixer and tried to sleep. As you can see, it says under attack. I tried moving the lean-to, I tried killing the enemies, but nothing worked. This myth is busted. You sadly cannot sleep through the mixers. The next myth in today's video comes in from whatever that name says, and they say, myth, can you steal mosquito's blood with a lifesteal weapon? I got a mosquito needle and I used it to hit a mosquito that had a full blood sac. As you can see, this myth is busted as the mosquito's blood stack stayed full the entire time. Tomato Man has sent in today's next myth, and they ask, myth, does the sharpshooter mutation work with turrets? Let's find out. As you can see, when you hit something with a bow with sharpshooter equipped, it gives you a temporary buff, which you can see in the bottom left of the screen. So I hopped into a turret and shot a wolf spider to see if I got the same buff. Sadly, I didn't get the buff, which means that this myth is busted. The turret does not work with sharpshooter. The final myth today was sent in by Dustin, and they ask, myth, a web that an orb weaver shoots will stop you when using a zipline. I decided to test this with a web that was already made. As you can see, when I went through it on the zipline, I did get stuck in the web. I decided to move the zipline back to see if it would change the outcome. As you can see, this time I fully got stuck in the web, so this myth is confirmed. Going through a web on a zipline will stop you. Thank you so much for watching, as always. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like on it. And as always, have a great rest of your day.